Let's get comfortable with the uncomfortable. Today on the Prenup Podcast with Gianna Biscontini, lifestyle designer, author, and podcast host. Welcome to another episode of the Prenup Podcast. Today it's Gianna Biscontini, who is an incredible, everything really, but a wellness founder, doing multiple things, podcasts, writing a book, doing a blog, coaching. I mean, you can list it all off, but before we get into all the things that she does, a little bit about how we met. My friend Forrest, when he found out I was doing this, he immediately texted me and said, "Oh my gosh, you have to meet my girl G. You guys are going to vibe. You're going to have so much to talk about personally, professionally, in every which way." And what's crazy is he'd connected us. I dropped the ball, completely forgot to follow up. And then we reconnected at the right time.
Yeah.
Like
5 years later.
Yes, literally. This was years ago when he was just like, "You guys will be best friends." And now that I'm doing this, I was like, wait, you tried to connect us years ago and we didn't. And so it's super serendipitous. So I'm stoked to have you here today.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about what you do.
So,
Or a lot about all the things.
board certified behavior analyst, wrote a book, working on my second, just started a podcast as well. Now I am the founder of Expanded Women's Health and Wellness, although I do work with people of all genders, but I say it's not only for women, it's in service of women. So mostly what I do now is plant medicine and psychedelic medicine. And so I run a ketamine clinic in DC. We work with altered states of consciousness for like deeper healing. So it's a lot of like neurosoma spiritual work that I've just created from the last 20 years of my career, working in all these different areas and really disrupting the field of mental health and wellness.
How did you get into that? Like, what was your journey there?
Like the last 22, 43 years of my life, right? I mean, it's just being conscious of how I walk in the world, how I see other people walk in the world. I wanted to be, a therapist. I wanted to have my own practice forever. But once I started studying it, it just felt really textbook and sterile and medical. And you had to have this blank slate, and how does that make you feel? And you couldn't be yourself. I didn't feel like I could be authentic. And that was in my 20s and I completely abandoned it. Became a board certified behavior analyst, worked with kids, did that for a while and moved to California and then got really into just multiple tiers of wellness and understanding the limitations of talk therapy and traditional medications. And so it was really just an amalgamation of everything. And then I happened to, when I was living nomadically, land in San Francisco, which is the mecca of psychedelic medicine in this country. Had really great teachers, made all kinds of connections, and microdosing in the woods of San Francisco and Muir Woods, and was like, I have an idea and I'm going to call it the expanded method. And I just had all these downloads. And I was at that point in my life of post-divorce, which we'll get into.
Mm-hmm.
I was living nomadically with two of my dogs, just totally above the fray of traditional life, totally outside of anything anybody I knew was doing. And it allowed for just downloads of creativity. And I really had nothing to lose. I could live anywhere. I could do anything.
You were free.
You're free. Yeah, so free. And the universe conspires as it does. And I just met all the right people and found the right teachers. And within a year, got 400 hours of training in neuroscience and psychedelic medicine and landed in DC, which is the perfect place to do this work, especially now. And and so the practice is going really well.
Well, let's track all the way back. Where were you born?
Dallas, Pennsylvania.
I didn't even know there was a Dallas in Pennsylvania.
Now you do. Yeah.
I love that. It's like Peru, Vermont. I was like, I'm sorry, what? We couldn't get more creative? Okay.
Mhm.
Dallas, Pennsylvania. Do you have siblings?
I do. I have a younger brother.
Okay. What are your parents like?
My father passed during the pandemic. He was 85 years old, had a very long life. Yeah, really interesting, entrepreneurial, multi-hyphenate dude. So I'm lucky that he was my dad, is my dad. And my mom just grew up really poor and didn't get to go to college or anything like that. But amazing writer, artist, and still lives in my hometown.
How did your parents meet?
They met at a Penn State football game. And my dad had been married twice. My mom was married once. And within 5 months, they were getting married.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did your dad have children from his previous marriages?
No.
Okay. So you're older than your brother or younger?
Yeah, by 2 years.
Okay.
Mhm.
So your parents get married. They have you. They have your brother. What is growing up in Dallas, Pennsylvania like?
It's a great place to grow up, but very sheltered. I mean, rural Pennsylvania, right? So I was lucky because my mom would take me to New York growing up, and I got to go to France on a class trip, and we'd go down to the, islands in the Bahamas. So we had the privilege
Mhm.
to get out. My parents had the privilege to get outside of the rural Pennsylvania bubble, and so I was exposed to adventure and travel and exploration at a really young age.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and, my parents ended up getting divorced, and so there was a lot of tense there and got shuffled around quite a bit, but, honestly, I grew up in the woods. As a kid, I had, like, my thinking rock in the forest that I would just sit on and, like, talk to, people that nobody else could see and write poetry and just talk out loud to myself and process things. So I was like looking back, I was like, "I was a weird kid," but before
So
that's
maybe, I don't want to tell me more about how old were you when your parents got divorced?
I was 12 turning 13, which is a
Okay.
huge deal.
That's a really pivotal year.
Yeah, I really wanted, like, the 13, like, "You're a teenager now," like, I grew up in the '80s, so it was
Yeah.
very, like, Breakfast Club and, like, Babysitters Club. It was all about I really wanted that female ritual of, like, now you're a 13-year-old and, we're gonna make
You're
a
a
big
teen.
deal out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't get that.
So do you think that a lot of the times when you were going to your thinking rock and, finding yourself in the woods was maybe like an escape from other things and just
Oh,
think and
yeah, I do a lot of nervous system regulation in my work now. I work a lot with the body and the brain body connection, and so looking back, going to the woods was soothing to me. It
Mhm.
it really, even now when I go hiking in DC, I'm like, this is my home. Nature is it's my home, right?
Yeah.
The condo that I have in Georgetown is my like second home. It's my like four walls, right? Nervous system regulation and my ability to just sit and be at peace and to process and to just like get away from chaos. And I still need that to these. I think we were saying before we started recording, like if I'm in DC for longer than 4 or 5 weeks without leaving for a long weekend, my body's like, "Ah,
Get me out.
get me out." Yeah. And I start my mind, body, soul starts to really react. And so the woods, nature, very, very important to me since I was little.
So it's definitely a part of your ethos and escapism in a
Yeah.
way, but also like recentering.
Yeah, we go to what's real. I mean, to me, like nature's real, right?
Yeah.
And I love living in a city. I love traveling. I love, the work that I do in my office. I love the life that I have, but a lot of the life that we live is constructed and artificial,
Yeah.
right? Artificial light, all the crap in our food, the noises that we hear, right? And so when you study sound healing, you see water. It like they show you water when there's like a garbage truck and it looks really angry, and then they play a person's voice or classical music and it has this nice geometric pattern. And we are mostly water, right? And so to go to nature is to go home, right? It's to return to something real, to the most real thing that we have. We are nature.
My mother is obsessed with that book that shows the photos of water with different sounds in the back.
Yeah, so
It's totally her jam.
Yeah.
Okay, so how did you get out of Dallas, Pennsylvania? What was your trajectory out and kind of into this wild world?
Oh, yeah, that was, like, my plan from the beginning. I was like, "Get me out of here." I After college, after high school, I went to college in Maryland, so that was kinda like my ticket out, and where I went to school in Maryland was still very small town. I mean, I was sitting on the ground in my bedroom my, like, late junior, maybe early senior year in college, surrounded by college pamphlets. And my dad walks in, he's like, "Oh, are you gonna go to college?" Like, I had no mentorship, no preparation.
Wow.
My dad was a lawyer, right? So he's highly educated, but he was 47 by the time I was born.
Mhm.
So his view of women at the time were like, "Oh, well, sure, go to college or don't, but you'll get married, you'll have kids." Right? Like, "Oh, you're cute enough and, you'll get married and have kids."
Yeah.
So it didn't really matter if I went to college or not, but it mattered to me. I was like, "Yes, I'm going to college." So I landed in a college that was completely wrong for me,
Which
but
school?
Salisbury, it's where I met
Oh
Forrest.
my gosh, that's where you met Forrest.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So it was completely wrong for me, and I was like, "Oh, I understand." Like, I was like, "I can fit in anywhere." Like, I'm a little chameleon. And so being a social chameleon and thinking that's what college was,
You adapted.
I was just like, "It doesn't matter where I go," right? "Oh, it's by the beach," and sure. And I got there and I was like, "Oh, there's so much that I didn't know." and wasn't prepared. And so by sophomore year, I told my parents, I'm like, I can't stay here. I want to go. And they were like, absolutely not. And so I just turned into like this raging party girl for the rest of my
Really?
Casa Rebellion. And I just thought, well, I've got to redeem myself with grad school and I'll give myself a second chance. And my grades at Salisbury were so bad that I had to ask for a specific meeting with Bunny Jarrett. I will never forget her. She's the Dean of Education and Human Development at GW, at George Washington University in DC. And I requested a private meeting. I was super tenacious about it. And I sat, she's like looking through my transcripts and I was like, do you honestly think
Yeah, you're going to go
you're going to go
here.
here, like one of the top 10 schools in the country for what you want to do? And I was like, Bonnie, let me explain. This is not representative of my intellect. So, like, I went to private school and here are my IQs, so like all these things that we now know don't really matter. But smart kid, just no direction, no mentorship, no anything.
Mhm.
And so she let me in and I was on academic probation. I was on academic probation for my first master's there, perfect grades. My grades were so bad from college that I stayed for a second master's and I was still on academic probation.
Seriously?
I don't think they believed it. And so finally they lifted it like within like a semester or two of my second grad program there. But yeah, so went to school in Maryland. And then after that, I moved to LA. I didn't want to be an adult yet. A friend of mine worked on TRL, for those of you who
Oh my gosh.
remember Carson Daly, no big deal. She worked with him on TRL. And she was like, I want to do film, move in LA. And I was like, cool. I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. I don't have any grasp of this world. I'm so unprepared. I'll go to LA with you. And then like the story continues from there, like my meandering from coast to coast for the next literally 20 years.
Okay, so you get to LA. You get your first job in LA. What is it?
First, I bought a VW Bug
Oh, even
because
better,
it's
obviously.
the first accessory to go with my California adventure.
Yeah.
My dad and I were like, look, this is your life adventure. I'd never been west of Pittsburgh. You'll stay 6 months or I will fund it up to this amount of money. And after that, like you're on your own. So I did Amstel Light promotions, just not a real job.
A job.
A job, but not what he expected, right?
Totally.
Not like, oh, I can survive on this in LA,
Yeah.
living right by the Viper Room off Sunset Boulevard. And so not like a career, right? And so I did that and bought my VW Bug and my two friends I moved out with were working in film. And I just drove up and down the coast and took the GREs and I just learned about myself and learned about the world and what was available to me. I mean, in college, my guidance counselor was like, oh, yeah, you want to work with people. So psychology. And then I realized the only thing you can do with a bachelor's in psych is to go to grad school.
Yeah.
Right. That's
Yeah.
like what was available to me. So I was just unprepared in so many ways. And I love California. And I just drove up and down the coast and Forrest came out to visit and we'd go down to Mexico, which dude, that was crazy
Oh, I
back
can't wait to
then.
hear more about that.
Oh yeah. Mexico trips and tequila. And I was just exploring. I was just becoming. I felt like I was catching up and becoming a person after being in these more constricted environments my whole life.
So so you're in LA, then you come back to the East Coast.
Yep.
And then where in this journey do you meet your husband or ex-husband?
Yeah. So I came back to the East Coast. I lived in Philly. I lived in Annapolis. I went to grad school in DC. Moved out to California to San Diego with a boyfriend. We broke up. I was living on my own. And then I guess a year later, I met my future ex-husband
Yeah.
in San Diego in 2015.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did you meet?
I actually crashed his first date with my friend. She had met him on Bumble or one of the apps. And she had texted me and said, hey, do you want to go watch football on Sunday at Beer Garden? And I was like, sure. She's like, oh, this guy I met on Tinder, Bumble, whatever is going to come. And I was like, oh, girl, I don't need to be a part of this. It's fine. Go on your date and we'll hang out later. And she's like, no, it'll be fine. And so the three of us hung out and he got my number under false pretenses. I was going to Bottle Rock up in Napa
Yeah.
months later. And he's like, oh, I have a friend up there. If you give me your number, I'll hook you up. And at the time I was like, your radar is kind of like, this actually doesn't make any sense. And so he got my number and was like, oh, I'll connect you with my friend if you need a place to stay. Super friendly guy. And then he texted me later that night and was like, I won't say her name. She's like, she's really nice. We went for a walk on the beach afterwards. I'm much more interested in you, to be honest. I just have never met a man worth fighting over. I just don't do that, right? It's like I would rather go, "Hey, girl, you take him," right? And I was like, "That's great. How does she feel?" And the first red flag. He's like, "How does she feel?" He's like, "Oh, she's cool. She's totally fine." I was like, "So you had the conversation, right?" "Yes, this is it. Yeah, I told her like we're cool. We're gonna be friends." And I was like, "Okay." Um, and then I found out that he didn't have the conversation and was extremely avoidant of any type of conversation that he, had to demonstrate, grace and
Conflict.
poise and maturity and like, "Hey, I think you're great. Honestly, I'm pretty into her. If that's cool, I'd like to be your friend." Right? Like you do that in the beginning instead of letting it metabolize and metastasize into something. And so, yeah, I found that out and I was like, "Look, I just don't think that you're a good fit. I think you're a great person, but communication is really important to me. And you failed at that. So we'll be friends." And I actually got back together with an ex, a French guy. Just, I wish do it once, but like, don't do it again. So I got back together with this French guy I was dating. And 6 months later, he cheated on me again because, of course, he did. And, you know, took me to Paris to appreciate to apologize for cheating, and then came back and continued cheating. It's
I
like,
love that.
okay.
Why does that feel on brand in so many ways?
Forrest was like, this is why you don't date
Yeah.
for. Yeah. So Forrest had a lot to say about that, but he was great during that situation. Yeah. And so I came back, found out French guy was cheating on me like a couple weeks later, and I was like, I wonder if that Will guy still likes me. And
It's kind
I,
of a rebound.
oh, completely. Because I knew that he liked me, and him and my friend had become friends,
Yeah.
and she would say, "Oh, I'm going out with Will tonight, and we grabbed a drink and whatever." And so I knew that they were actually cool, and she wasn't interested in him
Mhm.
in that way. And I was out day drinking as one does with all my girlfriends. I was like, "I wonder if that guy still thinks I'm cute." And I texted him, and he had a date that night, and I found this out later, he canceled it and was like, "I'll make time for you." And we went out and spent like 12 hours together, and like we just connected.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. So you get back together. You're like, wow, this guy's great, wonderful at the time.
So,
At the time, tell me more about, like what drew you to him back then?
honestly, you know, it was the love bombing, I think. He, like, qualified for the Olympics, athlete. Men tend to be very, like, linear, right? Get from point A to point B, like, win the trophy,
Mhm.
right? Like, execute. But men are awesome at executing. Also, so are women, we just do it in a different way. And so, at the time, there was just a lot of attention, a lot of pursuing,
Yeah.
right? We love to be pursued. It feels really nice. And I was old enough by then to, I was 32 ish. Yeah, 32. And I was like, this is really nice. And I liked being pursued. And we were going out and having a lot of fun. And his family, his brother and sister in law and niece lived there. And so he like welcomed me into his family. His mom came to visit. He's like, "I want you to meet my mom."
Mhm.
Um, it was just a super nice guy. I mean, I was dating him for a couple weeks and I had a housewarming party because I bought a house. And he came and was just like in the kitchen cooking for everybody and like just just acclimating and
It
being
fit at the
attentive.
time.
Yeah. And I will say that he hadn't really changed throughout the whole relationship. But yeah, just nice guy and honestly safe. I was like, "Oh, this isn't the guy that, like, cheats on you. Like, this isn't the guy that like, this is the type of guy you settle down with."
Yeah.
Right? Not like the French guy or, like, the musician or, like, the archetypes that I had dated before, because 'cause I'm a writer and I like a good story, but also because it's exciting and you're dating. You're in it to experience multiple types of people to learn more about who's good for you.
I also sometimes feel that women oftentimes look at like de-risking
Mhm.
their relationships because to your point, it's like that's the guy you marry, right? He's not the one that I'm like head over heels for or crazy stupid love with. This is stability, this is security, and this is balance, which maybe not everyone gets early on in life. So then they seek it out later in life.
Absolutely, close to his family, like, all these things. It was a lot of safety and doing the romantic things here and there. And I remember my mom calling me and being like, "Is it just," she's like, "Is he the love of your life?" And I was like, "No." I very flatly said that to her because I also never bought into the fairy tale. right? There's only one person for everybody, and it's this Prince Charming on a white horse that comes
Yeah.
to rescue me. Like, no, I was much more concerned about building my own life, and whoever was going to be magnetized to that and wanting to be a part of that would find me, and I would find them. Right? It would be this
Mhm.
natural thing, and so I never did like the husband hunting or the I want to get married and I'm going to find somebody. It was
Yeah.
just I'm existing, and whoever comes into my circle, we'll see what happens then.
Okay. So you're with him. How long were you guys together before you got engaged?
We got engaged on our year anniversary.
Oh, 1 year.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, he moved in after 4 months, moved into my home after 4 months, and then, yeah, I got engaged in Big Sur, like, almost, like, exactly a year.
And at the time, were you like excited, thrilled? We're like, oh, this is it.
After he proposed, yeah, I remember people saying, like, "Are you gonna get married?" And, blah, 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 and I was like, "I honestly don't know how I'll react to that question until somebody's down on their knee in front of me."
Yeah.
Right? It's like, I don't know. I wasn't really talked to about marriage, right? My parents, by the time I was that age, they had been married and divorced 3 times each.
Yeah.
So what the hell did I know? What experience did I have of a stable, healthy, relationship? And my rule was I won't get married until I have 5 friends, until I know 5 couples married for longer than 10 years who are happy. And it still hadn't happened.
Has it happened now?
No,
Yeah.
no.
Mm.
And so I was like, "Well, I guess it's not a great barometer." And I should have been like, "Well, let me think about what marriage is to me, and can I just be with this person and not get married and, and continue to evolve myself?" But the reason I left every single relationship I was in before that was because I felt constricted. I couldn't expand, right? I couldn't grow within the context of that relationship.
At the time, did you feel like you could grow with him?
Yes, we talked a
He gave
lot
you the
about, like,
space?
yeah, we talked a lot about traveling. I wouldn't say he could, like, sit next to me for those conversations. I very vividly remember saying, like, "I feel like you're not next to me. You're just, like, off doing your own thing. Like, we need this to be more of a partnership," right? Of, like,
Mhm.
if I was throwing a fundraiser for something, he would come and bring friends and, like, get his family to donate. So, like, on a superficial level, like, supportive. But, when I left, I was working with children with autism for a really long time. And once we got married, financially, I could like leave that job and do my own thing and take a more financial risk for a little bit. And so I did. And I created an employee well-being firm and it took off. And I was on podcasts and in news articles. And I watched him go, oh, there she goes. Right. And I remember him sitting there going, you're just soaring. Not like you're soaring, but like you're soaring. And he could not sit next to me for that, and he knew that. There was no way.
Oh,
And so nobody knows what the future is gonna hold, right? When I got engaged, I was like, "Oh, love is all there is, and this is so important, and family," and a lot clicked in for me. And the year of being engaged is probably like one of one of the most frustrating, hard years of my life because I had encouraged him to get a new job. He was busy with his new job. My father didn't want me to marry him, so my father withheld money when he had previously been like, "Of course, I'll pay for your wedding," and whatever, was withholding that. That brought up a lot from childhood, so it was a very
yeah.
tumultuous time. Looking back, knowing what I know now, I should have just been like, "Everybody hold on." Right? "I'm not doing this way. I'm not doing this way."
So everyone was trying to say something, but no one was, directly communicating it to you.
Yeah, well, I was dealing with, like, the 2 most, I guess, like, influential men in my life of my soon-to-be husband and my father, right? So my father doesn't want me to get married to this guy, he's withholding money. It makes me think about, oh my gosh, the last 32 years at that point, 33, came up for me of, like, my relationship with my dad, and it was great then, but it wasn't always great. So I'm dealing with that, and then I'm also dealing with, like, a very absent partner. I was like, "Hey, can we meet for like 1 hour a week to talk about the wedding? Because I want your input and your help because it's a big
'Cause
deal."
it's ours.
Right, because it's ours. And just very dismissive and very like, "Yeah, whatever," and that should have been my first clue, like, "Oh, if you can't plan a really fun party with me," which, like, he loved to do, "you're not going to be able to be my partner. You're not gonna be able to stand next to me throughout all the other things, even logistical, that you go through, in life."
So you still go through with the wedding.
Mhm. So there was never a doubt of like, should I not marry this person? I was thinking like, I wish you were more involved. And I was kind of in my own like debt of sorrow, but also, my wedding wasn't really about our marriage. It was about, I love getting people together. And I was so bored in my job at the time that this like the wedding to me was my opportunity to have creative expression. And so I got very into like, what would the guests like in detail and just the event planning of it all and like the experience that I wanted the guests to have. And like, "Oh, let's get married in Santa Ynez because you're not gonna like I had friends in California who lived there their whole life who never went to Santa Ynez, right? And so I'm like, it was all about their experience and like having this excuse, honestly, to get all of our favorite people together. And then I was like, oh yeah, and there was like a guy there that I walked down an aisle and like said stuff to. Not to say it wasn't special. I would never it was an amazing 4 days. Everybody had fun. My dad passed a couple years later, so, like, I would never regret that wedding. But during that time, very much in my own healing process, and I didn't know that at the time.
Wow. Yeah, you were really like planning something for others, not for you and your husband.
Yeah, because he was really not a part of it, right? Like, we wrote vows and, all of that, and I just looking back, I was, like, really forcing it. Like, I really wanted to feel what you're supposed to feel,
Make
right?
it work.
Yeah, and, like, framed our vows and a picture of us, and it's just, like honestly, I think it was my attempt at feeling normal, right? I didn't have a normal upbringing, I didn't have a normal family. I can remember growing up and, like, "My name's Gianna Biscontini, I command a room by just walking in," right? Like, I'm a magnetic person. But when you're a little kid, everybody's just I don't know, like, people notice you. I wanted my name to be Christine. I wanted to have glasses and braces and curly hair, like, I just wanted to constrict to be as normal and like
Yeah.
everybody else as possible. And so I was in this point of constriction for a really long time. And I think getting married and having in laws and family around.
And his parents weren't divorced, right?
His parents were divorced. His
They
dad got remarried, but
okay.
his mom had like moved west and he had two brothers and they were all having kids and they were
So you
right
have
down
this
the
big
street.
family.
Yeah, they're right down the street from us. There was like another niece that was born,
Yeah.
and all this. And I was just like, oh, they would come over to do like pancakes, on like Sundays and like we go to the farmer's market. And I was just like, it felt safe. I felt belonging for honestly the first time in my life.
Belonging. Yeah. I got that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's what was really really wonderful about it to me is that you're creating something. And I will still maintain it was such a special time, right? You can allow things to be so beautiful and so special and allow them to end and turn over and allow those other seasons to continue.
Did you guys have a prenup?
No, I have a lot to say on that though. We did not.
Okay. So was there any point in which you guys discussed getting one, or did it just never even cross your mind, or wasn't it an avoided thing? Like where did a prenup fall into your journey to get married?
I can remember sitting outside with him and we were like having, wine and like a snack. And I had like he had moved in a couple months before. I had no idea about his finances. I had made a lot of assumptions because of the way that he lived and he worked for his brother who owned like software like company, right? Like you make assumptions of like you're being paid well and have savings. And he said something like he had like $5,000 in savings.
At how old?
32, 33. And I was like, "Oh." And I remember just starting to cry. I was like, "I can't be with this person. You're not like." His idea he thought he was in a great position because his idea of being okay and being an adult was not having debt, and he didn't have any debt. I was like, "Well, also because you live in my house." Right?
Was he contributing financially to your house at the time?
Yes, we were doing it
Okay.
at different levels, not as much as I was at
Okay.
the time, but, and had purchased a car that was older, whatever. So he's like, "Well, I don't have any debt." I was like, "How do you" I was really concerned about his decision-making skills. So I was like, "You're talking about wanting to get married and have a family and children and all of that. That's that in San Diego, the way that we were living, like, absolutely not gonna happen on the money he was making and the money that he had."
Mhm.
And so the assumption was, are we using my money? Right? And so I had this whole grieving process of like, I don't he's not a good decision maker. I don't know if I can be his partner. because things are so skewed in different ways, right? And I don't think that he wasn't someone who gave a lot of thoughts to anything.
Did you guys ever sit down and look at your finances like side by side or be like, hey, let's open up the books or no?
No, because those were his finances.
That was it.
I have $5,000 in the bank,
What about like a
and I
401k
have
or
X amount.
investments or
No, he had the whole thing with his brother who treated him, I think, in my opinion, unfairly in the whole thing, and asked him to have this investment but didn't pay him back. A lot of stuff. And I realized we were at very different stages cognitively when it comes to like money and life stuff. And so at that point I felt like I was like leading the relationship, and I would have to explain to him investments and, all of these different things. And so that was, I again, multiple red flags where I will say I should have been like, wait, hold up. What what does this look like? So yeah, we had no discussion about a prenup or anything like that. Again, good guy, safe guy, trusting. The only thing that we discussed was we got, after we were married, we got a dog. And when you rescue a dog and you're a couple, they ask like, well, if you get divorced, who takes the dog? And so like that was, a discussion. But prior to getting married, no. And I'm really surprised that my father didn't step in. And so yeah, nothing. Nothing.
wow. Okay. So you got married,
Mhm,
no prenup. He had gotten a new job.
mhm,
You had left teaching kids with autism.
mhm,
You were pursuing your own thing.
mhm.
Your business is going well. He's in his new job. When does it all start to kind of fall apart?
Honestly, a couple of months after we got married and work well started gaining steam. I think he saw a huge separation. I saw this with a lot of guys that I dated, like, 5'2" and I'm petite. And I was like working with kids and they just immediately put the kindergarten teacher trope on me, right?
Yeah.
They like made me this archetype of like, oh, you're cute and you like
You'll
kids and
be a
you're a
great
breeder.
mom.
Yeah, yeah,
Blah,
you'll be a
blah.
great
Yeah,
mom.
you're a breeder.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Yeah, he literally said that to me, like, "Oh, you're a breeder," and I was like, "What?" Like, I'd never even heard that before. Now I would have throat punched somebody if they said that to me, but I was just, I was open to it all again, still not clear on what I wanted. I was navigating becoming as I was getting into relationships prior and this one.
Oh,
Um, and so work while started taking off, and I was working with investors and accelerators, and I really got to live into my potential. I got to feel what that was like, and he lost confidence really quickly. Like wanted to be able to stand next to me and to be more of a partner, and couldn't. And so it resulted in him drinking more, turning into this like, I'm gonna spend every weekend golfing and drinking with my buddies, and I was like, that's not cute to me, like, that's not who you are, that's not who you were, and so I think there was a little bit of reconciliation on his point of, like, "Who am I and what am I doing?" So a lot more drinking. I would come home, like, 3 hours late. I mean, and he's 6'4", 220, right? So never the guy's, like, stumbling through the door,
totally.
abusive, things like that. But I started to notice, we had gone to brunch, had a couple of drinks, came back to take the dog for a walk, and he couldn't take the dog for a walk without, like, bringing a drink with him, and was driving in the car with an open container 4 blocks to the park to take the dog to, like, play fetch for 30 minutes. And I was like, "Can you leave that at home?" And he couldn't, and was, like, stumbling off the curb and this and that. And so I noticed alcohol was more and more a part of our relationship. Then at this point, I'm 35, and I'm like, but I have this entrepreneurial adventure, and I'm writing a book with colleagues, and I'm doing all these things. And so alcohol became more of a liability than, like, something I needed to have fun. And for him, it was the opposite. And so we at one point, I think romantically and physically that starts to suffer. I'm wanting more physical connection. He has less confidence. He's less physically available. And, over the summer, a bunch of friends and decided to do a health challenge where we weren't drinking. Um, and I think he negotiated, he was like, well, just like one beer a day. And that's all I'm going to do. And I'm seeing the nervousness come up with the thought of not drinking. So we did the health challenge, and that evening, I saw him just, like, could not wait to get a drink. He's like, "Let's go out, let's go out." And I was like, "I'm on the like, I'm perfectly fine," right? I'm
Mhm.
like, I'm going to call my friend that I met at Stanford. He's in Australia. We're talking about our entrepreneurial ventures. I'm like, you go out, I'll meet you later. And I'm in the middle of talking to my friend Raghu, who lives in Sydney, he's still a dear friend. And we're talking about wellness and our entrepreneurial
Yeah.
stuff. And, he's a CFO, so he's helping me with business. And Will calls her like, everybody's drunk and you need to come hang out with us. And I was like, I'm good. And that night he ended up having, gosh, I don't even know what to call it, very, very, very inappropriate interactions and digital communication with our neighbor's best friend's wife. And they were planning to have an affair and, all of that and run off to our house in Mexico together. And so I didn't know that. The next morning, I wake up, I do my Saturday ritual, I go to the farmer's market by myself. And he called me and was like, I'm going to come meet you. And again, like female intuition,
You
like
just
the
know.
radar was like, wait, something has shifted. And so he came, he's like, I got a little flirty with so and so last night. And again, it's him, right? I was like, he probably said, like, you look really pretty and is feeling like guilty about it.
Yeah, you're
Like,
the good guy.
exactly.
You're the good guy.
And he's like, I was texting her and I got a little flirty. And I'm like, let me just like put his mind at ease. You can say other girls are pretty. It's fine. And I saw these text messages and I was like, oh, and it was extremely derogatory towards me. And they were planning to like go to Mexico and sleep together and have this affair. And I just put the phone down and I got up and I walked away. And I called my friend, mutual friends of ours, and I went to their house and I cried and sat in their pool and was just like, it was like so destabilizing of like my mind couldn't wrap its head around
Totally.
that, to the point where when I told people we eventually were like, we're splitting up, and people were like, why? And I'm explaining this whole story. I had to console other women because they're like, if he can do that, what is my husband doing? And I'm like, there are good guys out there. This is just like, I didn't even get to grieve. There was no point where I was like past that day where I was crying to girlfriends and like every one of our friends.
It's even harder when it's someone who it's not like you married a douchebag.
We're like, of course he did, right?
Yeah.
Like we're all
You're like, when's it yeah, like
who won the poll? Yeah.
we all do. It's so much harder in a way when it's the good guy on the surface. And then you're like, wait, so not only was I hoodwinked, but everyone else around me was hoodwinked too.
Yeah. And then stories and stories came out, and I will say, if we were happy, if everything was healthy up to that point,
Totally.
that would have been like, you're a we're gonna go to couples therapy. I'd like to stay in this. I'm pissed off, but like this is not a reason to end the marriage. But it was so many other things. Like he at one point was like, why do we have to leave the country every year? I'm like, dude, it's literally in our vows. Like, see them, they're on the wall. Like we love travel. We're gonna see the world together, right? So he started to constrict, I started to expand. And then there were all problems that came from that. And so this was more, it opened a door.
Yeah.
That was September 1st, 2019. I left September 11th, 2019, 11 days later, to go see my father. I didn't know it was the last time I was going to see him, but his dementia was pretty advanced. I was helping him move from his home into like an assisted living place.
God.
Yeah, I was helping him do all the things with his new place and getting him furniture. And so obviously, really hard. And not only did he not offer to come with me to act like a husband and a partner, he didn't call me the entire time. And his friends were going, dude, call her. He's like, no, I'm going to give her space. They're like,
It's like
call
opposite of
her.
what you needed at that point.
He couldn't speak to me because he couldn't come to terms with the fact that he had to have some accountability,
Yeah.
right? He was like, he was crying. I'm sorry. That is disgusting. I'm so sorry. Can we just move on? No, no.
No, it's like, what are you going to do to be better?
Right. You don't just get to say, I'm sorry and move forward. That I can forgive you, but that's not reconciliation, right? That's not
Yeah.
healing together. Healing would have been, I am going to sit by your side. What do you need from me? This is going to be empathy, right?
Yeah.
This is going to be really hard to go see your dad. I'd like to come with you if that's okay,
Yeah.
and help you and help him. And I can help lift furniture because he's moving, right?
Yeah.
None of that. Didn't call me. He texted me and said, hey, how's everything going? And I was like, it's really hard. He's pretty advanced. This is a new normal. This is a new normal. And he said, well, you're a strong girl. You'll get through it. Anyway, I just wanted you to know that I've been drinking the whole time that you were gone, but I haven't gained any weight back.
Stop it. Stop. Oh my God.
And I was
I
like,
would have lost it.
I'm holding my phone and I was like, And there it is. We're done.
Yeah.
We're done.
Okay. So you file for divorce.
He insisted on filing for divorce.
Excuse me?
So his friend, his roommate who he lived with before this divorce lawyer, one of his good friends is a lawyer. And so I think that I'm a Northeast Italian girl, right? I'm I'm not the calmest person, but I'm also really level-headed. And I think people got in his ear of like, she's gonna take your retirement, she's gonna take all this stuff, she's gonna want revenge, right? I I honestly I saw that text message and was like, oh, you wanted to be a partner to me. You can't be a partner to me. I think if you could wave a magic wand, you would be a partner to me. That's yours to hold and reconcile and spin out about now. And I was very calm about the whole thing. And so he was like, "Well, I want to file for divorce." And he had to like control every part of that and got his friends involved and all of that, his attorney friends. And nothing was really contentious. And he was like, "Look, I don't want the house and I don't want you to take my retirement." And was very, very concerned about the money. And I just wasn't. I was like, I don't want anything from you. I don't need anything from you because I have my own." Right? I think this is why I'm so big on empowering women to like understand your finances, have your own money. Um, and if your parents have money and you don't, that still matters because it will come back to you one day. It was my home. I had my life, I have my career, I have myself. And so I think of what really was validating was him being out of my life as my husband. There was no gap. There was no me sitting around going, I miss him. There was no sitting around going, "Oh my god, how am I gonna live this life without his financial contribution?" There was
If
no
anything, you're going to be living better.
right, and because he wasn't great with money anyway, and so, really the only thing was the dog with Franklin, and I will say, my father was still alive at this point, but had passed by the time the divorce was final. So, if he really wanted to, he by when my dad passed, his estate, which was quite financially abundant, was split between my brother and I. So it wasn't me just having like a small trust that my father had for my brother and I. It was the estate. So that was really at risk. And if he really wanted to go after that, he could have. But I just wanted it to be done. I was just like really ready to like let it go in a very healthy way. I was excited to be single again. I was excited for like the weight of all of that and the heaviness of him to just be gone. Like that was enough for me. I was like, I didn't even think about money. I didn't even think about asking you for anything.
So you guys were able to kind of have an amicable divorce.
Yeah, I really haven't talked to him at all since. I think at one point he was like, "I'd like to be friends," and I was like,
Why?
"Why?"
Why?
Right? The guy that I dated before him, and I will say, I date great people. Like they're nice, they're friendly, they're not great partners for me, but like these aren't like the horror stories you hear about.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "I really want to be friends with you." I'm like, "But see, here's the thing. You were getting so much more from me than I was getting from you. So I get
Mhm.
why you want me in your life still.
Yeah.
You want my emotional labor and my energy and my joie de
And
vivre. And
access
oh,
to
let
your
me help you.
community.
Yeah. In my community. Oh, let me help you with that. Have you thought about this?" And all the support, right? But I didn't get that from you. So I don't like this is freedom for me. Whereas maybe on the other end, there's more of a loss,
Loss.
right? Or maybe not, but that's how I have felt of like, why would we be friends, right? Like, I'm really not sure now that I've kind of seen it all, what's being brought to the table from you.
Okay. So you get divorced, you decide to move back to DC, or do you stay in
I get
California for
divorced,
a
I
bit?
stay in San Diego because now it's the pandemic.
Okay.
So this is September, October
Oh
2019.
my God.
So he moves out, and I'm like, 2020 is gonna be awesome. I'm gonna travel again. I'm gonna date. I'm gonna go to Switzerland. I'm gonna go all these places that he didn't want to go. I'm gonna go date, and I'm gonna like have a better
I'm
sex
so
life,
good.
and I'm feeling great. January and February, my company, I have payroll paid for the rest of the year. We have contracts out. I'm working with like really well known household names. I'm working with like Maria Shriver's daughter. I'm like, I'm out there in the world. And then the pandemic hits, and I'm like, oh, not doing any of that. Um, Thus continues the next couple years of my life, which were so traumatic. Like, even beside like, I would rather get divorced 10 more times than, like,
The
deal with
pandemic.
what I dealt with, like,
Yeah.
with business partners and stuff. So very, very, very traumatic times, but I moved to LA to finish my book. January 2021. So I lived in LA again for almost another year. Because of all the trauma, I just really wanted my community back. My friends I've known my whole life, my family. So I drove across the country and bought a house and landed in Annapolis. My book was launched, went really well. It was a bestseller, and I got to do like a press tour and all of that. I revamped this house to look like a California, like dwell inspired,
Wow.
Mecca, like Eastport, Annapolis. Got another dog and I was traveling to India for a wedding because Annapolis, it was a great landing pad for me. I
Yeah.
did a lot of what I thought was healing, but I really had no social life there. And after my press tour was over, I was like, well, what do I do now for work? And there's no industry there. And I was in India for a wedding, and the concept of living nomadically came across my email. And consequently, on that trip, I got an offer on my house. And so I landed at the end of December around Christmas, and I had 6 weeks, and I was out of my four-bedroom house, and I was traveling the country with 2 dogs, living nomadically for the next 16 months.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And so post divorce, you start dating again, you start exploring. Do you ever want to get married again?
If I do, it will look very, very different than a traditional marriage. I know all the research on men are healthier in marriages and women are less healthy in marriages for the most part. I know all that research of when a man gets married, his career gets better. When a woman gets married, she's asked to make all these, sacrifices. And so I don't really see the point in getting married again. Getting married to begin with, actually, that was all him. I didn't really care to get married. I was like, what if you just get me a ring and we say we're engaged and we're just engaged until we die? Right. I really love the concept of coming home to somebody because we both choose to be there,
Hmm.
not because it's really expensive to not come home. Right. I'm a behavior analyst. I understand contingencies and what keeps people and things. And now I'm a therapist who works with people going through it's like, oh, can I leave him? Can I afford to leave him? Right. I never want to be in that position. And because I got divorced, I got to be a best-selling author. I got to have this 2-dog single mom life. I got to write a second book. I got to start my own companies. I got to move wherever I wanted,
Yeah.
wherever I wanted. I got to be nomadic, which was one of the best experiences of my life. So I've experienced the immense joy and freedom and becoming, and I've lived such a more abundant, interesting life that I would absolutely not have lived. Well, still lives in the same place,
Yeah.
right? Got remarried immediately, somebody much, much younger, party girl. I'm like, that makes sense. You should have just done that to begin with, dude, right? Like, that makes sense. Good for you. And so he's very much sameness, and I'm very much like novelty and
Expansive.
exploration
Yeah.
and creativity. And so if somebody can sit next to me through that and I feel that same freedom and they add to that, sure.
Okay. So, and what do you think of prenups now?
Oh,
Now
I
that
would get a
they're
prenup. I say that, but like if I got married to a billionaire, I'd be like, I don't know if we need it. Right. Like, there'd be some negotiation. Like, behavior is so contextual, right? If I'm marrying somebody who's a billionaire, I'm gonna be like, "Dude, I want a prenup," because I know what I bring to the table, and if you're asking me or if I'm choosing to like, "Oh, well, I can only work this much now," or I'm just actually gonna not see patients, I'm gonna
Mhm.
write books instead, I would love that, and let's travel with the dogs, and sure, but there's gonna be a financial piece for me if this doesn't work out, right?
Totally.
Nervous system regulation and safety within a relationship is so important. It's important to be yourself. You need to feel safe in order to be the full expression of yourself. Sexually, women especially need to feel very safe.
Yeah.
Everything is better when there's clarity and safety. Um, and so yes, if I'm getting married and there's, a prenup, and especially maybe if that person has less financial abundance than I do,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because I don't want to have to worry. I don't want it to be in the back of my head, right? Of if this doesn't work out, if he's not who he says he is, if I meet somebody else, happens, right? Your soul doesn't care if you have a ring on your finger. Your heart doesn't care, right? You meet somebody else and I actually do know people who have cheated on their spouses and have married the person that they cheated on with and are so
Well,
happy.
it's like Amber with Lovable, the book. She's
Right.
so happy.
I've seen it. I've seen it with an older, they're in their 80s when I was passed
Yeah.
now, but my friend's parents or my parents' friends who I grew up with,
Yeah.
um, they came out of an affair and they're soulmates. Another friend of mine, my age, had an affair with the married guy, and she's like, nope, like I'm done. And he left his wife and now they have this beautiful life, equitable partnership, right? We can't, the linear, this is right, this is wrong, this is supposed to happen this way. That's not humanity. That's not how we live. Try and be a good person, but be also really honest with yourself. So I absolutely would get a prenup moving forward now because I have a company, I have my home, I have my doggies, right? Like
Yeah.
I care. I've built this life. I've built such an expanded, healthy, joyful, free life. And it's up to me to protect that, right? In all the ways, prenup and otherwise.
Do you have any clients that you work with that have been exploring marriage that also are exploring prenups, or is it not something that you really
I have
discuss with
people
them?
who are exploring postnups
Okay, interesting. Let's
because
talk
it's
more
like,
about
oh
that.
shit. Well, because they feel this shakiness of the marriage, right? And
Yeah,
I hear what everybody else says of like, oh, I never thought I'd be calling a divorce lawyer. I never thought I'd have to get divorced, right? It's like
totally.
you didn't? Like, that's always a possibility. I don't
Yeah,
care how perfect a person seems. People are people, and sometimes things don't work out. And so I do work with people who are exploring postnuptial agreements because maybe they got married when they were really young and now they're 2 decades older and they're like, they're starting to do this and understanding like, well, he wants to grow this way and I want to grow this way. And is this going to work? Right.
yeah.
It's not somebody's going to cheat. It's not this nefarious, horrible thing. It's
It's life.
right? You wanna live in the city, I wanna live in the country. Like, when you get married really young, you don't really know. I spent a lot I'm still becoming, and I'm 43, right? And so, we're always becoming. Hopefully, you can move in the same direction together. Sometimes you stop wanting the same things. And so, I think the patients that I work with are at that point and going, "Oh, well, we'd like to stay married, but this is a little shaky. Let's put an agreement into place now before things get contentious,
Yeah,
right? Before we're going at each other's throats, before things, I think just like preemptively, whenever you realize, like, hey, this might be a good idea, have a conversation because then it's all written down,
yeah,
right? And you agree on something. And it's a lot easier to agree when you're in a calm, alert state i- instead of, in the very emotionally volatile state where you're just trying to grasp and like fight for things that you don't actually care about, right?
yeah.
I ended up with the dog in our divorce. And that wasn't really part of the plan. I was happy to share Franklin. Will moved to the other side of my neighborhood, came over every day to take the dog. As we are getting divorced, right? I'm seeing my ex-husband every day. And he's taking the dog to the park. And then it came out, hey, when you would leave for work for days, we'd get a phone call saying, like, hey, I've been at the bar for 6 hours. Can you go get the dog and take him for a walk? And there'd be no water in his bowl. Like, I'm very good to my dogs, but like it's also very basic to take care of like the needs of a dog.
Yeah.
And so I was told this during the pandemic. This all came out as we were sharing the dog, and people were like, he's not being safe. He's going to these big parties. Maybe get a different collar and a different leash because we didn't know at the time, right? We're sharing an animal, we're touching the same things. And then our mutual friends were like, by the way, and they like, oh, he was on a boat the other day with Franklin. Franklin didn't have a life jacket. He didn't have booties. He was skidding around on a boat, right? And so I took Franklin back one day, I wrote him an email, and I was like, we need to have a conversation about how we're going to treat the dog. And Will's response was, either we do 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, or you take him.
And you were like, I'm taking
And I
him.
was like, I don't know if you know how ultimatums work, but I will take the dog. And that's how I ended up with him, right?
Oh,
I'm just glad that we didn't have anything in writing
yeah.
about it. So he could have just kept him, right? So clarity. Clarity is important.
Oh my gosh. What a wild world.
It is
Like,
a wild.
what a wild world we're in.
I know. And like I have this hat that says holy we're alive. And like when I put it on, I walk around with so much
Holy world.
like holy we're alive. Like this is our human curriculum.
Yeah.
Right. When I tell people I'm divorced, I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm like, it's the one of the best decisions I ever made. And I will say, I think Will would say the same thing, right? He's remarried. I don't really know much about his life now, but we have mutual
He's
friends.
happier.
Sure. Yeah.
Like,
Like, let's not be, I work a lot with like that Buddhist concept of non attachment,
yeah.
right? When we attach and we call it bad if your marriage fails, it's like, or you were supposed to be married for 5 years and learn all the things that you learned and have all those things reflected to you so that when the time comes to separate, we like to say it's forever, try, whatever. You're allowed to choose. You're allowed to change your mind.
Yeah.
This is your life, right? So you can hang on and be miserable, or you can take a deep breath and let go and allow your lives to continue. And I would not be living this life now. I'm the happiest I've ever been. I would not change much about my life these days. I would have a summer house on a lake for the doggies. Like, but I'm working on it. But other than that,
Manifesting, manifesting,
yeah,
manifesting.
I'm
Yeah,
saying it out into all of the mics, all of the cameras, all into the New York energy.
I love.
And I got to do this. I got to live this
Yeah.
life because I chose myself. I literally remember the moment where I decided I don't want to be in the marriage anymore. And I thought, this is what it feels like to choose yourself. Wow. I've never done this before. Right.
I'm so proud of you.
Thanks, lady.
And I'm so happy for you. And I can't wait for many more conversations like this
So many more
as
conversations.
we both grow and we both heal.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all a process. And I think enjoying the process, enjoying the passage of time, enjoying the process and
Yeah.
being in every single moment and having awe is like one of the most healing things that we can do. Like, I send Will like so much love. I still maintain he's like a good guy. I understand like him. I understand anybody I've ever been in a relationship with, right?
Yeah.
Friends, men, otherwise. Like, we're all humaning is hard
Yeah.
and we're all just doing the best that we can. Maybe this is like the plant medicine, the psychedelic practitioner in me, but love is the most important thing. We're all trying the best we can. And if we can give each other compassion and also stop that cycle of self betrayal because of a belief of we fail if we
Yeah.
don't, there's a big reward on the other side of that.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we can end on that note. That was like perfect.
Thanks,
This was
lady.
great. You're
Yeah.
the best. Give you a
Thank you
hug.
so much.
My gosh.
Thank you. Thank you.